want to get into two stories right now. First of all is I met Mike. Well, why don't you tell the story? I think it's really funny how we met. Tell them the story, because that goes back to Long Island, and I think it's really unique and clever because it just goes to show you that how we all intertwine in this industry. Because you weren't, at that time, you weren't even in the insurance business. You came out of selling mortgages.
I did, and it's just kind of a testament to small world theory, right? But I moved out to Long Island. A lot of my good friends are either from Long Island or lived out there, but one of my buddies was living out in Smithtown. I had just gotten the opportunity with Lincoln, and my mentor, who was actually Chuck's brother at the time, was living and working out in Long Island. So I was living in Hoboken, and the commute, even though it's only 45 miles, would have just been a killer. So I decided to move out to Long Island, moved into a condo complex. I walked the complex for about a week or two, and I didn't see anybody under the age of 55, to be honest. And then I decided to go to the pool one day, and lo and behold, there's a young guy with a young girl, and I'm like, wow, holy cow, there are people in this development. And I think it couldn't be more than a month later, I walked into the DBL center, and there you were. We had kind of met at the pool and not even known about it.
He became known as the pool guy, and he walks in, and everything.
It's funny, he kind of still is known as the pool guy.
And my father was like, how do you know this guy? I'm like, it doesn't matter. And when you mentioned Chuck's brother married someone who went to my high school.
Crazy tiny world.
Really, really weird, you know? Yeah. Obviously, you were born and raised in Boston, thus the Tom Brady in the background. And you went to BC.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Went to BC. Yeah. So, right. We were two ships passing in the night all along, and until insurance brought us together for good.
Do you remember the story specifically when me, you, and Dave sat down at Blackstone's in Melville?
I sure do. Yeah. That was a great dinner, right? If I remember correctly, Zurich had just announced, or they were going to get out of the DBL business. And Dave was kind enough to invite me out. I remember the discussion, and at the time, as Michael Pellegrino can attest, we were just rolling out our own DBL platform. Prior to that, we were using National Benefit Life, which I think is under another name at this point. And,
National Benefit, Chuck, became AmTrust, which as of October, to bring your story together, they got out of the business too.
Oh, interesting. So I guess we made the right move, Michael, getting our own platform. But right, you guys were kicking the tires and kind of weighing out the interest on Lincoln's behalf in terms of, hey, you have any interest in looking at some of our Zurich business, right? I mean, that was the discussion overall. And if I remember correctly, I didn't necessarily resist that. I was just super candid with you and saying, look, like, we're just rolling this out. I totally appreciate the inquiry, right, to put it mildly, but we probably can't handle that type of capacity at this point. We were really working off of, hey, what's going to complement the life in the LTD, and we can build our new platform step by step at that point, as opposed to any type of block transfer, if you will, that we talked about relative to Zurich, or even exploring that with your broker base. Correct? I remember.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I remember my father calling me up at the time I was in Smithtown. So we were having this dinner or lunch meeting. That night I go out. Mike is living in my complex. Coincidentally enough, we would watch the Yankee games because he would give me a reason to go out so I could leave my unfortunate, I was just married at the time, and my wife kept saying, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going out with the pool guy again. We're going to go to this local bar and watch, because the Yankees were in the playoffs every year we were there, right? Or the World Series. And then my father calls me, he goes, so how much do you think Chuck can handle? I said, he gave us a number. He goes, all right, tell him he's got it tomorrow. And we signed over a chunk of the Zurich business, and we built upon that. And now we've got a very big book with you guys. So that's been great. And all three of us came together in some way, shape, or form, which is, one of the reasons I wanted to join you guys on this roundtable, if you will.
Good old days, by the way, the good old days, as I sit here in my son's bedroom, and we're in other various locations.
I'm like just dying, hoping that my 3 or 1 year old doesn't scream in the background. But if they do, there's the disclaimer.
And it's one thing if you have a musician that could go online on a Zoom, like they just recently did a concert to raise money. You could sing, because people are quiet when someone is at the piano, like a Lady Gaga or an Elton John. and it's nice and it's quiet at that type of environment. But it's very unique because right now, comedy, which I came from, I couldn't imagine having that kind of audience without an audience. And I think it wanes on the art of the deal, because the face-to-face meeting is what makes for a great salesperson. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have, by the way, I've got about 45 reps on the East Coast and 5 regional managers, Mike being one of the reps. How are we going to stay relevant? How are we going to stay visible within this issue, right? And so it was a challenge, right? And we kind of came up with, we kind of leaned into, hey, let's not force it. So here's what not to do. We can't force this, and don't do anything out of your comfort level. Lean into your style. And we started kind of joining some of the tools we were given from our home office. For example, we developed some podcasts. So we kind of promoted podcasts through LinkedIn, and the folks that were used to using LinkedIn, they continue to do that or enhanced that presence. And we had other reps, establish firm weekly WebEx type of meetings where, to your point, like on body language, even in this format that you're doing now, usually do kind of a roundtable in person. You can, it's not great, but it's definitely a decent substitute, Michael, and we've kind of leaned into that. Like, I guess there's 2 different examples, kind of WebEx meetings, and then really promoting what we're doing relative to COVID on LinkedIn as an example.
Pre-COVID-19, I started to, as we just talked about getting into business, that was 12 years ago, that pool experience. So over the last, let's call it 5 to 7 years, I've seen, a lot more offices where you'll go in for a visit, and maybe 50% of the people are there anyway, because a lot of people are starting to work from home. So I think that this will now accelerate that. So you may have to be more creative as a rep moving forward to try to get that captive audience, and WebEx is probably a way to do it.
It's almost like the 5 stages of grieving. Denial. When this first came out, really? No way. Then it became anger. Then it became bargaining. How do I, to your point, home office, figure this out from a social media perspective? And then it's now just in depression and acceptance. We're all entrepreneurs, driven salespeople type A. We don't want to hurt anybody, but let's get creative and figure this out, because we all want to make a buck, and we're all hungry.
I think some things are going to come out of what we're all being forced to do, and that creativity, right? That'll be maybe a permanent component of how we approach the business and how we interact together as producers and sales reps, for example. But we're still like, heavily leaning into some optimism in terms of, hey, late 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, this is going to get back to normal to some, not everyone says it won't go back to pre-COVID, but I think it'll get back to close to where we were. And we're kind of leaning into that, Michael, to be honest. I do believe that some creative aspects of doing business differently will come out of this experience for sure.
Well, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. And, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate you having us on.
You got it, man. Take care, guys.